Good afternoon. We are about to start, so please pay attention here. This panel is panel 5, the Roundtable. Could you hear me? Okay. I would like to invite every one of you before we start the panel to remember the day for a minute. Thank you. First, I would like to thank OSA for giving me this opportunity to introduce these fine people here. And our first presenter is Dr. Mohammed Hassan. Dr. Mohammed Hassan grew up in Harare, completed his undergraduate degree in Addis Ababa University, and then went on to get his PhD from University of London. He first taught African history at Atlanta University and Morehouse College, as well as at Hunter College in New York City. He taught for 20 years African and world history at Georgia State University in Atlanta. He has published groundbreaking works in the Oromo Ethiopian and Oromo and the Christian Kingdom, and more articles than we all thought. You all know Dr. Mohammed, and this is very small part of what he has done for us and for Oromo that I told you, you all know better than me. So, Dr. Mohammed.
Thank you very much, Esther. At the outset, let me say I have not done much. I didn't have access to many sources. I had access only really to a very limited sources. I suspect there may be a number of BA and MA theses on Gile Oromo community at the Department of History in at Finfinne University. There may be other works in the social, in anthropology department or sociology department. Anyway, according to history of the Oromo up to the 16th century, the Gile community was one of the 3 major branches of Tulama Oromo Confederation, namely the Dache, branches and 35 gosas. The Gile community is spread partly in the Great Rift Valley. Today, the Gile are found in the district of, maybe mispronouncing, Dugida, Bora, Adami, Tulu, Kombolcha, Wanji, Gafarsa. They also live in the district of Gile Tumuga, which is really named after them in the Amara regional state. Oromia specials, they live also in Oromia special zone in Wallo. According to the history of the Oromo, the history I mentioned above, most of the Oromo who live in Oromia special zone are Number one, Gile, two, Karayu and Makana. What absolutely surprised me about the Gile is when the federal system was established in Ethiopia in 1992, a number of Gile Oromo communities were incorporated into the Afar regional state. This is something I learned really very recently. In what is today Central Oromia, the Gile community is spread from around Mojo to Adama and beyond, from Mojo to Magi and beyond. They lived, let me use this term, in a very fertile land, in those days blessed with rivers and abundant rainfall. For centuries, the Gile community depended on mixed economy. Some of them were sedentary farmers. Others were, and still are, pastoralists. For centuries, the Gile administered themselves through the Gada system. In fact, the Karayu and the Gile were the two Oromo communities who really maintained the Gada tradition. I have not come across historical evidence that King Haile Selassie, the man who made himself the Amara king of Shawa, on the land they captured from the Oromo between 1830 and 1840s. His annual raids really did not, the Giles lived more than 200 kilometers, actually probably 250 kilometers from the zone his annual raids were reaching. It appears the Gile community lived in peace as an important branch of Tulama Confederacy. However, when the grandson of King Haile Selassie, that is Menelik, embarked on his conquest, the Gile, like other Oromo community, really started facing serious challenges. This is for the following reasons. First, before King Menelik embarked upon the conquest of RC Oromo, his soldiers, once Menelik transferred his capital to Intoto, and then in 1885 to Finfinne, which will be named 2 years later as Addis Ababa. Almost 6 weeks after Menelik defeated, was victorious at the Battle of Chalanko. There is good reason behind this. Once Menelik entered Harar, captured the city, he wrote a letter to his wife Taitu, in which he said, I have defeated so and so, captured so many things. He was so elated in his letter. And then Taitu, who read that letter, immediately changed the name Finne to Addis Ababa. Basically, it is very much connected with the conquest of, with the Battle of Chalanko. But even before that, Menelik's armies were raiding the Giles because his soldiers, his unpaid soldiers were, they depended on raiding, and the Giles were closer to Finfinne, and they started really raiding them. And once Menelik embarked seriously on the conquest of RC Oromo in 1879, it lasted almost for 7 years. When they were going to RC land, they were raiding their cattle and other properties. When they returned, especially when they were either defeated or returned without capturing cattle from there, they simply extensively started raiding the cattle of the Gile community, as well as other properties as well. In fact, a European missionary who lived in Finfinne actually from 1870 for years and established education for the Oromo communities in the area. I am talking about Marshal de Salviac, who wrote a wonderful book in 1901. He says many soldiers truly massacred the people they found on their way. And probably the Gile community may have been the victims of this massacre. What is most interesting is throughout human history, whenever serious human rights violation, or even when genocides were committed, basically they were committed for the purpose of exploiting the resources of the conquered people as a most important initiating factor in terms of genocide. In fact, most genocides, I quote, were committed in the building of an empire. Please underline this: in the competing building of an empire, building and maintaining of an empire. While Emperor Menelik was building his empire, countless Oromo nationals, especially Gile community, Arsis, and other Oromos, definitely paid with their lives for his victories. Second, Menelik, who made himself the emperor in 1889, was successful in creating the modern Ethiopian empire. According to Professor Teshale Tebabu, a very objective historian, he says Menelik's empire was established on the destruction of Oromo power. This is not what I said. This is what Teshale Tebabu wrote in 1994. And it is absolutely true. Menelik's brutal conquest of 1880s, 1890s was accompanied by cataclysm of cattle plague of 1888 to 1892, which drastically reduced the animal population of the newly created empire. Tragically, the cattle disease was followed by epidemics of typhus, dysentery, and cholera that claimed the lives of huge number of people. Caterpillar destroyed what was planted by hand, resulting in the worst famine in the newly created empire. In short, the triple calamities of war, cattle, and human diseases and the famine drastically reduced the size of pastoral Oromo communities. According to Marshal de Salviac, whom I have already quoted, he says some pastoral or nomadic communities were reduced by 90%. Such drastic reduction of human population is very rare in world history, actually. It happened in few areas in Africa. Probably the Gile community definitely suffered during those dark days. They started to be removed from their land during the time of Emperor Haile Selassie. Let me mention why that was the case. It was Emperor Haile Selassie who started modernizing the empire through expanding elementary education, later on high school, of course, establishment of clinics, hospitals, and of course, centralization of power. However, Emperor Haile Selassie's modern institutions like clinics, elementary schools were established in urban areas. The Gile community lived in the rural areas. The point is, since most Giles lived in the rural areas, they were not the beneficiaries of these institutions. Haile Selassie's limited development policies contributed to huge displacement of Gile community. This is because the Gile community lived on a prime land, as I have already mentioned, between Mojo and Adama. Their land was ideal for commercial agriculture, and Haile Selassie's modernization embarked on this commercial agriculture. Since the Giles lived closer to Finfinne, the center of power, they were the second to be victimized in terms of removal from their land by Emperor Haile Selassie's limited development policy. The first were really Tulama Oromo during the time of Menelik, with the established once Menelik occupied first Finfinne and then renamed it into Addis Ababa. The Tulama Oromo, a large number of Tulama Oromo were really displaced from that area, and the displacement that started more than 140 years ago still continues, especially among the Tulama community. And in fact, if the present trend continues, remember the new, the Prosperity Party, rather the current leaders, they want to create a mega city. They call it with a beautiful name of Gada City, which really includes the whole areas between Mojo, Adama, and extensive territory, which really means millions of farmers will be removed if that idea is realized. Millions of the Tulama Oromo will be removed, and others will be removed from the land of their birth. The Giles were, of course, not beneficiaries of commercial agriculture. First, they did not have the necessary skill for that. They didn't have the capital, and then the new technology like buying machineries and so on. And it was others who were basically the beneficiary. They lost the land, they did not benefit from anything. Secondly, Emperor Haile Selassie got reparation of about $27 million. I got this from my friend DJ. And this was a reparation for the war damage during the Italo-Ethiopian War of 1936 to 41. And it was with this money the Italians built the Koka Dam. Basically, the Koka Dam was built on Gile community land, were they the beneficiary of the electricity, that is spread to Finfinne, later on to Bishoftu, and then to Adama. Since they lived in the rural areas, definitely, probably only very few Gile Oromo members who lived in urban areas may have benefited from the electricity generated by the building of the Koka Dam. But tens of thousands of Giles were forced to be removed, and they were never consulted about building the dam, nor never compensated for their loss. Some of you, I'm sure DJ will talk about this aspect, and let me not say much about it. My time is up? Wow. Are you sure? Okay, thank you. I will be done quickly, very quickly. the Gile communities were removed, not only the Boka Dam. Later on, the emperor actually gave the area around Wenj to this Dutch company for sugar plantation as well as sugar factory. Most likely only few Giles were employed as guards at the sugar factories, at the sugar farms. I very much doubt if they were employed at the sugar factories. A huge number of the Giles were removed from their land. Let me quote from one of the finest scholars who deal with Ethiopia, John Markakis and his colleague Naga Ayala. They say once the Giles lost their land, they were drastically reduced. They even mentioned the figure of only 10% of the population survived. Probably this may not be a clear picture. The Giles not only lost the most important land, they were driven to marginal areas where they were exposed to malaria. And the malaria raids by the government forces, raids by other nomadic groups, basically impoverished them. It was probably in reference to the heavy price the Gile community paid for the modernization that the late Professor Masfin Waldemariam stated, some people have to pay heavy price for development of the country. It was the Gile community and other conquered people who really paid a terrible price for modernization from which they were not beneficiaries. Thank you very much. I'm done.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed.
Sure.
I would like to tell you how this roundtable came to happen today, right? So DJ went to Kabane to, he asked her, can we explore the meaning of Bate Uresa's days here when we hold OSA's meeting? Then Kabane agreed, and also Dr. Mohammed agreed to contribute the background of Gile's, where Bate is from. So that's how it came to happen. So thank you, everyone. And now I would like to introduce DJ Tufa. I always been calling him. Yeah, it's here. DJ. So DJ is from the Gile. He is a son of Rift Valley from Maki, where Bate was from and where Bate was killed. He also has a connection in Minneapolis, where he went to school. He graduated from here. He was born in Adama, raised in Bishoftu and Addis Ababa as an Air Force brat. Completed his high school at the American Community School and went directly to the University of Minnesota because his friends lured him to this part of the country, telling him that it was an attractive place. He graduated from University of Minnesota with a double major in international relations and political science after a postgraduate diploma in mass media and film studies. Starting at the National Archives, he developed a 35-year career in civil service, from which he recently retired. He served for 15 years on the board of the Oromo Community Center in Washington, D.C. DJ As a runner, he has followed the career of Oromo and Ethiopian runners, writing and publishing about that sport. He has published about 6 one of them is a legitimate criticism or justice as a chauvinist. This is all on Ayantu. It was about 6 of them. Do I need to tell the names? Maybe not. So DJ is from Washington, D.C., and DJ is, you have time to start. You have 15 minutes. 15 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Brahane. Closer to me. Okay. Thank you, Brahane, and everyone on my panel. And I especially like to thank Kabane for for editing my my initially written article called a piece called in memoriam for Bate Uresa. Initially, I had a much more bombastic language in it, and she said in a scholarly setting, you cannot use those vocabularies, and she removed some of them and left some of them. At any rate, this is just a memoriam to Bate Uresa. I'll read the memoriam, and that's about it. Bear with me, I'm a bit sick from the food I ate yesterday at the soccer tournament, so I'm not really that well. At any rate, on the night of April 9, 2024, Bate Uresa was brutally murdered on the outskirts, brutally murdered, and on outskirts of Maki in the Rift Valley Lakes, where my family is from. I'm a Gile Oromo like Bate, and I'm also told that we're distantly related. As you know, Rift Valley is the area, it's a land of origin. So certainly we are all Giles all over the world. So the first person walked out of the Rift Valley and populated the world. I did not know him personally, but I have taken a special interest in his case. I'm grateful to have the privilege of this platform to provide some primary data and also to point in areas of study that needs close investigation by scholars of the Oromo. Bate was living in Maki at the time he was killed. He lived farther north, but he wasn't living in Maki where he was killed. He lived farther north in Lagatafo, outside of Finfinne or Addis Ababa, with his wife and 4 children, 1 boy and 1 girl, 4 girls. Bate was in Maki to visit family and take care of some business. Look, I talked to local people have told me that he was visiting government offices and paying taxes the day. And he stayed overnight to visit his mother and siblings and also to assess the growth of his vegetable farms that is in the Maki River District. He was staying at a guest house where he knew the owner. There was no public restaurants or bar in it. It was a safe, usually quiet place. He had retired for the night on April 9, when after midnight, security forces in a government-issued range truck arrived. The security forces entered the property and Bate was removed from his room by force, mistreated, and stricken. They did strike him as they forced him out the door to the truck. There were several witnesses to this abuse, including the owner, the receptionist. We have been able to piece together the story of what happened, relying largely on Milo, who is Bate's younger brother's account. Not too long after this kidnapping from the August house that took place, a man working on a construction site heard an approaching vehicle and watched an approaching vehicle and hidden behind a tree. It was the wee hours of the morning. The witness saw the lights of the government-issued truck arriving in that fairly remote area. 4 men in the truck. One was shouting orders. 2 armed men got out of the truck. They removed Bate from the truck, bound with his arms bound behind him. After an altercation and multiple shots were fired, the bound man was shot at point-blank range. The witness recognized the victim, and he knew Bate. Bate's body was left at the outside where he was shot, in that area known as a feeding ground for hyenas and other scavenging animals. The witness also watched from a distance, was not detected, and when the government-issued truck drove away, he stayed the remainder of the night to protect the Bate's body from the dignity of being defaced beyond recognition. Others also were working in the same area, who were tending cattle, assisted guarding the body. They called the police the next day. The police and the family the next day, was April 10. They found 6 bullets casing, but did not take the body or order an autopsy. They left the body for the family. The police left the body for the family, who had to come from a distance to the killing grounds in the early morning. The primary eyewitnesses told his story that to Bate's brother, which is corroborated by those later arriving onlookers, and the key witness on the same day, the key witness also disappeared, apparently the same day they found Bate's body. Milo, Bate's younger brother, who was faced with organizing Bate's funeral, gave an interview to OMN, which aired on April 11, the day of the funeral. Milo reported to OMN his and other witnesses' account. What I have reported to you here is based in large part in what was collected from those and other witnesses. The funeral took place in Maki at the Masarat Christos Church. It was a quite somber affair. People were so afraid that they barely talked to one another. Unfortunately, later in the day, Milo himself, Bate's mother and sisters, all the eyewitnesses at the killing site, the witnesses from the guest house, and an investigator who was sent by the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission to document the violation of the rights that this murder were all arrested. 13 people in all. two completely disappeared. The witnesses from the killing site and witnesses from the guest house who were protesting the treatment of Bate. We don't know for certain who carried out the assassination or why, but it should be noted that this abduction and killing follows the pattern employed by Kore Nagenya. Kore Nagenya's the secretive killing squad has terrorized Oromia for 4 years. I speak for the people from the area I spoke to the people from the area who knew Bate as a local son. That is considered considered an unforgivable cowardly act to kidnap and then gun down the same night an armed man and patriots and activists who will regard as a true revolutionary on his own way, becoming widely known leader. We were proud of him. Many in the country were proud of him, proud of his courage and speaking out, and were noticing him as well as his argued positions. Bate Uresa was born in 1979 or 1980 in a small village called Bate Uresa, about 2 kilometers outside of Maki. To his parents, Ade Godano Boba and Obo Uresa Bula. He was the first child of the family, followed by his brother Milo and sisters Dasu, Shimbo, and Soraya. After he completed the village primary school, Bate attended the Maki Secondary High School and graduated with high distinction. He was assigned to pursue higher education at Harvard University. He graduated with a BS degree in biological sciences. For a kid from a small Gile hamlet in the Great Rift Valley, it was a towering achievement. During his university years, Bate became a student activist at Harvard University, organizing Oromo students, speaking out, and fighting for the dignity and democratic rights of the Oromo people. He was a violent fighter against the TPLF-led EPDRF regime that committed hideous acts on the Oromo youth known as Qerro and Qarres, who were protesting the expulsion of Oromo peasants from their ancestral lands. They protested land grabs in Oromia, and especially under the program called Integrated Development Master Plan for Addis Ababa, which was called for the city to expand on fertile Oromo farmlands to about 60 times the current size of the city. But they worked ceaselessly to oppose this looming threat to millions of Oromo. In the depth of Bate's continual protest and nonviolent struggle against this massive injustice lies in the beauty of Oromo youth and the love of their people and nation. Bate embodied the spirit of Qerro fighting fearlessly with the courage and valor till his last day. The Oromo people knew what his purpose was and respected him greatly. He was in and out of prison to his opposition, first by the TPLF throughout his student years at Harvard University, later as a member of OLF. He faced the presence of OPDO or a PP. Both regimes tortured him. He was imprisoned in several government-operated political prisoners centers in Awash, Melka, Galan, Sabbata, Mojo, and Burayu over the past several years. Both regimes took to their dungeons and torture chambers. His health suffered immeasurably until the last. He was stricken with a hepatitis B infection that almost killed him. He recovered slowly from the hepatitis. He bore permanent scars, had a lasted headache, and carried on wound from his rough treatments. The Prosperity Party denied him access to medical care, and they also deny to other prominent OLF members from whom have been prisoners for nearly 4 years. His fellow OLF members. Oh God. Oh, okay. 4 minutes. Well, he has been held since 2020, and because of the killing of Hachalu protest and so on. In their final criminal assault, they murdered him. Then the government added insult to injury by claiming to the nation an absurd announcement that Bate Uresa was killed by Milo himself due to the family quarrel. The murder of Bate Uresa is a vile and a ghastly horror committed in the middle of the night, followed by an additional horror of family blaming the family members, concocted as a cruel and diabolical plan. It was an attempt to divert attention from the real perpetrators and hoodwink the public. The Korean Agenya group, which operates all over Oromia, may try to kill an Oromo nobility and splendor by killing such an Oromo revolutionary, but they cannot kill the revolutionary ideas of free Oromia. The yearning for freedom and expression of rights shall never be extinguished. A new generation of gallant Oromo youth will pick up the torch left behind by Obbo Bate Uresa to fight till Oromia becomes a free land. So I don't have a time. Bate was one of his impactful occasions were when he argued on several mass media about the issues on Oromia and in Ethiopia, and he was steadfast and in control of himself, even though when provoked by Habasha participants on several of these media like Shai Bunna and so on and so forth. But his erudite discussion on the issues left the audience in awe. His unwavering tenacity, invaluable political wisdom touched the hearts and minds of all that followed on several platforms. He exuded confidence without being cocky. For now, we also need to remember him and reconnect with the paramount sacrifice of our best and brightest, the likes of lawyer Abdul Jabbar Hussein, artist Dari Galan, and the 14 Abagadas of Karayu, who also killed execution style. In their case, it was orders given over a cell phone from Korean Agenya operatives sitting in Adama, and many others who became victims to the regime security apparatus. The existence of this secret committee is documented by a writer. Her name is Paraviki. I cannot close without tapping into the emotion that loss in most Oromos and many Ethiopians. The resistance and martyrdom made by all victims of Kore Nagenya will become the stars of our night skies of Oromia. The succeeding generation to this struggle will inherit and defend the dignity in their martyrdom. The quest for freedom and willingness to pay any price will continue to shape the political environment left behind by Obbo Bate and other Oromo martyrs. In the words of Che Guevara, whenever death may surprise us, let it be welcome, provided that our battle cry has reached one receptive ear, and a new generation of fighters will take up the torch to continue the struggle. And also, in the words of Khalil Gibran, the significance of a man is not in what he attains, but rather he longs to attain. You give but a little when you give of your possession. It is when you give of yourself that you truly give. And thank you very much. I'm run out of time.
Thank you, DJ. Before I present Kabane, we have unspoken panelists that I'm going to introduce and also read his message. I'm sure all of you remember Antoine Galindo. He is a French journalist who was arrested with Bate on February 29th of 2024 and spent 8 days with him in prison. He sent a tribute to be read on his behalf. He spent 11 years working in or about Ethiopia. He lived in the country from 2013 to 2017 and kept writing about it for Africa Intelligence until the summer. He will write about other parts of Africa with more traumatic rather than country-focused assignments for a couple of years. I'm going to read his message. A few words about Bate Uresa by Antoine Galindo. I did not know Bate Uresa before the day we were arrested. I had asked him to discuss the war in Oromia region and the position of his party, the OLF. He had been recommended to me by a mutual friend and appeared to me as someone very well connected in the region. Our exchange was not intended to be published. It was just to help me understand some of the background issues I was missing. Our misadventure ended up costing him his life. It gave me a glimpse of much more than what I had initially come for. In 8 days of discussion with him behind bars, but they had plenty of time to tell me all about his journey, his commitment, his reasons and motivations. He immediately impressed me with some rare traits of character, but they never lost his composure. Together, we underwent numerous interrogations during which we were asked absurd questions again and again. We were accused of conspiring to bring about a convergence of struggle between the Fano movement and the OLA. The police blackmailed us to gain access to the content of our phones. Our conditions of detention were, by Bate on admission, despicable. Bate never lost his temper or raised his voice at the absurdity of the situation. He had experienced it of He had experienced of it. I once asked him how many times he had been imprisoned. It took him more than 20 minutes to answer with a smile. The Ethiopian government, whether the current regime or the previous one, stole a whole year of his life without ever weakening his determination. But they had a very deep understanding and very sharp reading of the conflict that are shaking today's Ethiopia of the history of his community, of his country, of his social structure. He deplored the armed struggle, but understood it. In the short time we spent together, he passionately shared his knowledge with me, explaining it, simplifying it again and again, always with calm and authority. He was partly driven by educational work, certainly convinced that the peaceful struggle depends on intellectual emancipation. I don't claim to know who Bate Uresa was, but I do know that he had no personal ambitions. He had enormous ambition for his country, but it seems to me that he always took a backseat in his cause. That's a mark of gentleness, and that probably what the Ethiopian government was afraid of. What was that vision? I certainly won't pressure to paraphrase it here, but I can nevertheless try to sketch out a few guidelines gleaned from the discussions I had with him, and which I had after his death with some of his relatives and people who worked with him. I think Bante believed deeply in the idea of justice and horizontal democracy. I think he believed in a common Ethiopian future built on a freedom with real sharing of wealth and power. He believed in self-determination as a guarantor of discipline and horizontally of power, and he believed in peaceful struggle to achieve this. His assassination triggered a wave of tribute that transcended community and political divisions in Ethiopia. But Urgesa was one of those men capable of becoming a common denominator. His days is therefore an irreplaceable loss of Ethiopia. He saw his political commitment as a sacrifice, and he was aware that his choice had consequences for those close to him for his family. We spoke about it at length. He would never have been able to fight the battle he did without their support. For a time, I feared that his murder would trigger a wave of popular anger similar to that unleashed by the murder of Hajjal. For reasons that escape me, this was not the case, but they certainly would not have wanted his days to be the pretext for an outburst of violence. One thing is certain, his days must not be forgotten, and I hope that this few days of discussions that have brought you together in Minneapolis will serve to draw the most useful lessons. That's the end of it. And thank you, Antoine. I hope you would see this. And our next panelist is Kabane. Before I give you the mic, I would like to introduce you, Kabane. So all of you know Bani. She's known Bani Holicom, also known as Aur Kabane. She's an anthropologist of the Oromo. She first visited the country for 2 years in 1971 to 1973, spending the first year in Horoguduru and second in Ambo. When unable to to be admitted to the country during Derg times. She worked on Oromo issues and with the Oromo community in the US and Europe. She was founder of Oromo Studies Association in 1986. She wrote a book with Jason Clay about the Ethiopian famine of 1984 to 1985. She wrote a political history of Ethiopian with Sisa Ipsa titled The Invention of Ethiopia, and recently has worked in advocacy with Oromo Advocacy Alliance and Advocacy Network of Africa. She connected with Bate Uresa in 2019 and stayed in contact with him as a colleague until his days of April 2024. Kabane, now it's your time.
Thank you, Iftu. And thank you, Mohammed, for giving us the background of the people of whom Bate was a part, of whom DJ is a part. Thank you, DJ, for giving us the details of the killing, the details of the valiant. You said a valiant fighter. It sounded like you said violent fighter, but it was a valiant fighter because he was a non-violent. Right. But as I started to prepare for this, after DJ suggested that we focus on Bate for this event, I had assistance from a great number of people. This killing has enormous significance for the Oromo, for the Ethiopian, for the world community. And when we go to look at that significance and take the slice of his life and his background, his people, his family, his commitment, his religious and political involvements, the position that he held and the implications of his life being snuffed out, it is enough for a long article or a book. And I do thank the people who have helped me in just touching some of the high points, some of the issues that we need to be aware of in asking the question, what does the killing of Bate Uresa reveal about the current state of Ethiopia? We're actually introducing Bate to a wider public who would come to know him for the first time. He was just emerging as a public figure. He was the 42-year-old father of 4 children, as DJ has told us. He had a wide range of forms of education in science and finance. He was a man of strong religious belief and activism, had been a preacher, had been a committed person. His commitment to nonviolent struggle went very deep. Bakala Gerba has talked to me about this, and he himself had been writing and translated Martin Luther King's works, discussed in detail with Bate about nonviolence and what it means and how it works. And he was committed very much, as we'll look. He's an active organizer and activist during his university years, and a leader and an organizer during the Kero youth movement from 2015 to 18. He became a political officer of the OLF, who became publicly affiliated with OLF after, particularly as part of its public face after it became an officially registered opposition party in Ethiopia. He served as its spokesperson for a time before he was arrested for a year from March 21 to March 22. So what do we do here? I think let's start by focusing on a response to nonviolent struggle. Those who are committed to nonviolent struggle actually do not assume that they will be working alone and that their activities are going to be undoing the system that needs transformation and that is violent and that needs to be exposed. Their sacrifice and their putting themselves in engagement with that system is based on the idea that their colleagues, that their political groups and that the wider public will be able to understand the nature of the system that they're up against, and they will take action to change the system. And this is at the core, it's a much more sophisticated thing, but it's at the core of Gandhi's nonviolence, at the core of Martin Luther King's nonviolence, at the core of the philosophy of nonviolence. And Bate himself had shown his commitment to this kind of struggle. When in looking at what he had endured during the EPRDF years as well. During those early years, he'd had his head smashed with the butt of a rifle. He had been subjected to beatings that brought him scars for life. As he faced the Prosperity Party prisons, he had other experiences that resulted in his leg being broken in places where a rod was required. He was unable to cross his legs. He almost died from hepatitis B, contracted in the conditions in prison, until international outrage forced his release. He was released on a stretcher. People they endure indignity. People who took him food, who tried to find him and take care of him, would arrive at the prison and have to endure, after all the work they did to prepare this food, having something filthy put in the food, stirred around, and then have it taken to their loved one. They endure uncertainty and fear, transferred from one facility to another. Collected a very fine compilation of Bate's appearances in the public realm, starting from, I think, 2021 all the way up to just days before he was killed. And hopefully we'll get that published. And we didn't have the opportunity to display, there's no time to display his cool and determined demeanor in engaging all those who would come into the discourse on Ethiopian television and Oromo TV, and he was gaining respect and gaining authority and gaining visibility. The one member of OSA who is here, who presented yesterday, Taye Nadi, who closely watches Ethiopian public spaces, has shared with me his thoughts about Bate. He has written a longer piece about musicians and politicians. His public character, he said, some people have amazing natural talents for public speaking and even have a great message to go along with it. Bate was one of those. Intelligent, articulate, committed to the nationality issues. He debated, he discussed and explained to opponents forcefully and effectively on all that was happening. And he defended the truth of Oromo history. During many occasions of participation with Shai Buna, which the DJ introduced, panel discussions, anti-Oromo groups would jump on him, accusing and opposing, and he, with very calm, very respectful demeanor, modeled how public discourse could shift into the direction that would allow everyone to have a voice and to come to a conclusion. Taye had shared more than that, but that gives a flavor. We need to take a deep look at what this killing reveals about the current state of Ethiopia. I see that I will have to summarize. So I thank those people who gave me translations. Lubebiro gave translations of some of his interviews. Ebisa Ragasa brought in clips for where he was speaking very specifically to the issues that were being raised in the debate. We have quite a bit of information about him, and I think we need to unpack his public position. Antoine said he was a fascinating guy, really. After our arrest, Antoine said, I didn't speak much, I stayed silent, but after Bate's assassination, I spoke out and said they couldn't break the guy, so they killed him, pointing to the cowardliness of the act. So what does the killing reveal about Ethiopia and the state of affairs in Ethiopia? It reveals that there is a pattern of region-wide killings. Rather than focus on who committed this crime, if we look at that pattern, we are looking at a deep assault on civil society space in this country. Bate was part of the Kero movement, which was a social movement, an organization that was laying the groundwork for a great deal of initiative and new structures emerging from the country. And this Bate's killing is just a revelation of the stark terms and the purpose of the continuing operations of suppressing this movement. The operations of the command posts are revealed. The operation of the Korenagenya, as we've said, are revealed. The secret committee that is set up to bring supposedly peace and stability to the country, that is defined as eliminating opposition, and this has been systematically employed. The killing reveals the absence of civil society structures and the active, sustained suppression of those structures. The decimation of the civil space is probably the major revelation of this killing, because Bate is not alone. Bate is one of many, many who have been killed. We've looked at we've mentioned the killing of Hachalu Hundessa, of Abdul Jabbar Hussein. The 14 Abagadas were taken by a truck to a killing ground, and there was a conflict among the people who were supposed to conduct this killing. The person who was in charge didn't think that he had the authorization to do it, and the people wouldn't take orders from him. So finally, he got the Korenagenya on the speakerphone. People are getting used to this. No investigation is allowed. The Ethiopian Human Rights Commission investigator who was sent to look at this case was arrested with the witnesses. He was only released fairly recently, close to the time that the commissioner himself resigned. We don't know how much this case had to do with that, but the timing is interesting. So if we look at what happens to these investigations, it's like a process of stifling the community and creating fear because there is no accountability for what happens. And the outrage is numbed. Hachalu was assassinated. Everybody talked about an independent investigation. It's been dropped. Abdul Jabbar Hussein, the Adama police commissioner, said we will investigate. The mass killings of the Abagadas, as I said, the investigation that was dropped and cut off. Other examples of key figures are there. But if you go deeper, it's not just the high-profile figures. The people who worked ceaselessly to successfully bring down the TPLF government were organized underground. Their leaders were effective, but they were not public for a reason. This committee and this assault that's gone on against the Oromo who were organizing in civil society space has been extremely targeted and effective. Okay, my time is up. Let me summarize. We should be quite concerned about what real and potential leaders have been eliminated. We should look at the fact that Bate's killing raises a serious question about what it means to be an opposition party in Ethiopia in the current day. What are the opportunities there? What is that designation? What is possible in this space? So we are raising this here as part of the Oromo Studies Association. We're committed to scholarship, research, and investigation, and we're responsible to identify subjects that need study. The Oromo people constitute the second largest group in the continent. 44 million people is the same as the population of Ukraine, the same as the population of Sudan, and yet these things are happening under the radar, without access. Oromia is a no-go zone for most investigators and humanitarian groups. So it's up to us to bring light to what is going on there. It's up to us to bring hopefully a searing searchlight into what's happening so that the space does not remain closed, and that the future of the region and the flourishing of civil society space can be revived. So that I think my time, I heard this beeper go, I will stop there. But it underscores that we must work to shed light on what's transpiring in this massive territory and crippling one of the largest groups in the continent.
We have exactly 9 minutes. We'll have a question and answer session for this 9 minutes, and please go to the point so we can use that minute appropriately. Yes.
Thank you. Let me begin with a disclaimer. I'm not an advocate of violent struggle, but always when I hear taking Martin Luther King's model, non-violent struggle as a model, I think it doesn't work for the Oromo. Because Martin Luther King had the Kennedys, had the Johnsons, had several other people who supported them in the government. In the case of the Oromo, they have none. And so, how do you respond to a violent government? The government is so violent. There is no one who help you from from inside. So it's referring to Martin Luther King's model of resistance or struggle and then to adopt it by the Oromo or to the Oromo struggle is either originated in the lack of understanding or really misleading and deceptive. And the Ethiopian government only spoke to the Oromo groups when they raised arms in Zanzibar, in Dar es Salaam, and even in Asmara. However weak the OLF was, they went to Asmara and they talked to them. They never talked to Marara, who was there for about 20 years, leading KFO as a peaceful, non-violent struggle. So when the government is violent, when there is no Lyndon Johnson in it, then there is no Robert Kennedy in it, then there is no John F. Kennedy in it. How can you talk to them? How can Martin Luther King's model of struggle apply to the Oromo? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mohammed. You well said it about the Gile and the Karayu people. But one thing which I like to stress a little bit is that about the pollution, the great pollution that comes out from factory. Particularly, I remember one factory in Majo, laser factory. I think yesterday somebody has said it. They use chemical. They use chemical to treat lasers. That is very dangerous. Another pollution is all the what do you call sewage system from Finfinne. I think Dr. Bante also said something about that yesterday. That's a very serious one. Another one which people may not know is there is the top of ours before it enters the Coca Dam. There is a plantation of potatoes, onions, everything is grown there. And all that is dumped into the Lake Coca, which causes algae. And so the people and the cattle drink that water. The Gile people, the Karayu people lives about 50 years of age. That's all you can see from their faces, from their thesis. It's all black. The most displaced people, as you said, the people who are birth rate is always decreasing from maybe something like 800,000. There was a guy, Karayu guy last year, who came from Boston. You remember him? He really explained it. So we should keep the Karayu people in our prayer or whatever. Thank you.
Question. All right. The question is, an entire leadership of an Oromo group was killed. There was no justice, no accountability, and it was a state orchestrated killing. All the political assassinations and the killings of Bate Uresa with no justice, no accountability. The question is, what is the response? I mean, if the regime had done all of this, what is the response of the Oromo elites and the political organizations and the international community that had given legitimacy to the regime, and that is the question. But my statement is that me following the Oromo politics and reading silently, this is how I feel. 7 years ago, I used to feel angry about the Oromo persecution, killings, and etc. I used to be angry at the TPLF regime. But then over the last 5 years or so, I ask myself, how do I feel now? And how I feel is that I despise, I'm not angry. If I felt angry at the TPLF leaders and the people that they used, I say, how do I feel about the current leaders of the Ethiopian state? I say, I despise the people there and the system and those who shake hands and live with them or try to give them legitimacy. That is my personal feeling, and I in it there, and thank you. And I'm glad that we are honoring the life of Bate Uresa by having at least this discussion. And he has not died in vain. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say a few things regarding the Gile, the pollution so extreme. I got a chance to read a thesis for master's program, and interestingly, when they wash their clothes and put it on the sun to dry, the clothes that supposed to be dried and dress up next day, it would be broken down. The chemical is so strong, and so that's what they drink, that's what they feed their children, that's what they do everything with it. And very interestingly, from that interview, it was the women who have been really carefully observing than the men. That's one of the things that we need to credit the women for that case. Coming to Bate Uresa, to me is, okay, when I was collecting data, interviewing many people, I asked a woman, I said, Ethiopian government is killing many Oromos. I asked her whom they are targeting. She gave me a fundamental answer. She said, warra ija qabuuf warra gurra qabu ajjeesu. Meaning, the literal meaning is those who have ears and eyes. If I have to translate, she is implying those who are visionaries, those who are informed are the targeted. Who are those? They are the leaders. So the Ethiopian government intend to eliminate Oromo leadership has been going on for centuries, for over 100 years. And so we need to recognize that killing of Bate Uresa as intent of the Ethiopian government to deny us leadership. Just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we went over our time, and I will give hopefully you give us one minute each. They just say thank you. One minute, and they just say thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kabade, for your generosity. Let me say in this 1 minute, as far as I know, probably Dr. Melkesa will correct me, Kore Naganya that has carried out so many killings in Oromia was established only 3 months after the current Prime Minister came to power in 2018. In one of his video interview, Bate Uresa says 43,000 Giles who refused to leave the Oka Dam area when the dam was built lost their lives. The video does not describe how they died, probably either through violence or through the pollution, or through what happened to the environment. Definitely 43,000 people lost their lives. Let me finish. In the last 6 years, especially in the past 5 years, 1.5, these are not my figures, 1.5 million people have been displaced in Oromia alone. Over 200,000 houses have been burned with all their containers in Walega, in Guji area, in Shawa, in RC area, in so many areas. In short, even during the time of Minilik, not so much crimes have been committed against the Oromo as it has been done in the last 6 years. And most people, some people say this is an Oromo government. This is a government that is determined for destroying Oromo identity, dismantling Oromia. How do we fight against this? Only through military means. Otherwise, there is no way. They will, mark my words, in a year, Oromia will be dissolved. Let me stop here.
Thank you. I really don't have much to add than have already been said. However, this notion of violence and peaceful means, if you look at the Keros, what they did, they were nonviolent kids, teenagers. At the end of the day, who kicked the Wayanes, and they went back to their territory in Tigray. So also at the same time, it's always people who have strong organizations who can succeed. I don't think the Oromos managed to get to organize any strong organization as for the last 50 years. I just even noticed in this town, when we were having OSA conference here, there are several different organizations having meetings. And I went yesterday to the football tournament. There are closer to 40,000 people there. It's just amazing. So this unorganized community cannot win any political organization, any political means, or even freedom. So God help us. That's how the Oromos are for so many years. We don't have strong organization. It was divided into groups and regions and religions and so on and so forth. It's a bad karma.
I would second what DJ has said. I think that we highlight and honor Bate for what he was committed to. Assess it, judge it, hold up his own commitment, which is part of the struggle that he stated very clearly. So I think that our task is to look at the decimation of civil society, the possibility of organizing, the great potential that was being built under the when the Kero were active, and now we've come to the point where the dialogue that was requested, that was demanded, has been reduced to a commission that is working without representatives from the people. The transitional justice system is in place that is being touted along with the injustices that are occurring full scale in the country. And as I said, shining a light on this to let us know what is actually happening there is part of our scholarly responsibility and our moral responsibility. So just to highlight these realities and move on from there.
Okay, I really do apologize for abusing the time. Thank you so much, all of our panelists, and thank you for listening to us. And really, the only one thing that I would like to say about this is, but these kids are not 4 anymore; they are 5. Please remember them, and wherever they are, iyyaafachuu hin irraanfatina. Galatoma. Thank you.
Thank you, Galatoma. Thank you so much. So I will have one more announcement. We want to say a few words about the project they have. Dr. Vairu and Aliashi, our treasurer, please come on. 2 minutes only, please. Thank you so much. Lammaffaa yeroo keessatti jalaan fudhadhu community naannoo Washington hundumti keenya irratti walii galtee amana community iddoo hundumaa jirurraa addadha. Maaliif iddoonni jirutu adda isa godha. Location sanatu adda isa godha. Location suni Washington jechuun opportunity guddaa kan qabu nuuni garuu hamma yoonatti yoo dhugaa dubbanne jenne itti dhimma hin baane. Isatti dhimma ba'uun nurra jiraa inni murteeffanneerra. Isa gochuudhaaf immoo wal'aansoo guddaa qabutu nurra jira. Ammaaf yaadi keenya manatti isheetiin nu hundumti keessan beektan sana idaa isheerra jiru ofirraa baasnee yoo rabbi nu gargaare immoo lafa sana bal'isnee iddoonni jiru sanaa wajjiniin kan deemuu danda'u sarbiisii akka saba keenya kennuuf danda'utti community centerii xinnoo ishee bal'aa ta'e lafatti ijoolleen dhattee wal agartuu dandeessu, lafa ijoolleen dhattee itti haasa'uu dandeessu, lafa wal qabannee ijoollee keenya nama keenya barsiisuu dandeenyu, lafa keessummaan keenya yeroo dhufu bulee darbuu danda'u waan akkasii hojjetannee yaadaa jirra. Kan iddoodhaan ga'uudhaa fi fiixaan ga'uudhaaf kan nuyi dandeenyu tokkoon Oromoodhaan iddoo fedhi inni jiru biyya lafarra jiru naannoo Washington keessa kan hin dhufne jiru irratti bobba'uu qabna. Haadholii dhageessan hundumaa warra irratti ga'aa jira. Fakkeenya tokkittiinis miti kenna. Eeguma kana yaanneeti GoFundMe baasne dheengadda gadhiisne. Daqiiqaa tokko keessatti Oromtichi tokko birrii 1,000 nuu kenne. Listen to this carefully. GoFundMe yeruma sana birrii sana deebisee fi dhiifama nuu godhaa. Kennaa isinii kennamu gara fuulduraatti piroosesiin goonuu jedhee iimeelii naa erge isinitti agarsiiseera warra baay'een keessan argattaniittu. I don't want to put any idea in your mind. I want you to digest this information. And akka garaa kootti every Oromo should be outraged with this kind of thing that's happening to us. Homaa naman goone community waggaa 20 jirudha. Hin bal'isneen namalee nuu keessatti duula gaggeessina hin jenne. Achi keessatti meeshaa binnee nama ajjeesna hin jenne. Ijoollee guddisnaa, aadaa keenya guddisnaa, maqaa keenya dhaabnaa, fira horannaa, rakkina keenya namatti himanna achi keessa teenyeenni isa kanan gootan jedhanii mudhii hidhatanii nu reebaa jiru nu waraanaa jiru Oromo. Kunis ni gargaara. Kanaafi rabbii jedhaatii nu gargaara. Hamma dandeessanii horii duwwaa miti yaada. Walquunnamuun nurra jira, walii wajjiniin haasa'uun nurra jira. Mana kana akkamitti guddisuu dandeenyu ulfaadhaa galatooma. Ammaa fi tikeetii xinnoo ishee gurguraa jira ittiin qabuudhaafi. Waan isin erginaa iddoo GoFundMe kan bu'u liinkii zeeliin dhimma baanaa yoo rabbi jedhe kan crowd sourcingidhaaf nu gargaaruu danda'u simuu ilaalaa jiru ijoolleen keenya. We will send out that probably in the next 2-3 days. We rely on you. We depend on you. I don't have to beg you. I'm just one Oromo. every one of us should be outraged in the list. Galatum.
Ani Washington DC miti asuma Minnesota garuu Dr. Baharuun t-shirtii kanaa fi tikeetii baatanii deemu waggaa kaleessaati. Nami maal baattu jedhee gaafatee hin jiru. Waa'ee DC gatii ta'e kan dubbadha. Osaan addanarraa gara DC 2012 kaasee muuvii akka godhee booda baay'een keessan warri osaa dhaabdan yookiin immoo warri osaa irratti pirezenteeshinii dhiyeessitanii seenaa akkamii galmeessaa akka ture argitanii sun Washington DC'tti. Mana Oromoo jedhame sanaa dhaqeetti keessumsiisameera itti gammadeera akka mana haadhaatti. Naannoo DC kan jiraatanii dargaggoonni maanguddooti hunduma keenya baay'ee nu keessumsiisan. Yeroon akkas jedhu qaana'anaasaa maaliifi adda namni kuma meeqatamaan jirra. Osaa galmi guutuu nuti irra jiraatu nama qaanessan danatti hin jiru. Anaadha kan oppoozii godhu akka osaan isitti hin taane. Kan namatti tolu garuu Minnesota yoo mana sagadaa bitanna jennee yoo maal goona jennee wanta goonu addanaa inuma goona. So DC bira dhaabachuu barbaadeetanii jechuudha. Tikeetiin kunooti t-shirtiin gurguraa dhufe kana namni guddaanii nama akka Dr. Baharuu kana yeroo baatee gaafatu eenyuyyuu irratti paartisipeetii gochuu qaba kan jedhuun bira dhaabachuu barbaade. Tikeetiin kun $30 ila yeshii tolasaan cheekii koo katabeera. Tikeetiin nan barbaachisu tikeetiin nama biraatti darbuu danda'a. Fuuldurattis karaa salmiinsi isaan jedhaniini community Washington DC jiru Oromoodhaa fi amman qaburraa gumaachuudhaa fi akkan qophaa ta'e isinitti mun barbaada. Akkasin immoo naa fudhattanii abdii guddaan qabaa. Baay'een isin galateeffatan dhaggeeffachuu keessan.
So in the next agenda is OSA business meeting. Those of you who are a member or would like to be a member starting today, please stay in the room. For those who are not a member and just wanted to participate, please, we'll see you tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. in this place on the final day of the OSA conference. Thank you. Please, members, stay. Do not leave. We will be quick so that we'll have time and go to Osfana. So we will be very quick. Dr. Getaun, I will invite you here as a board chair to chair the business meeting. Thank you.